What if everything you've ever been told is a lie?
These silvery devices, it said, were actually radar reflectors from a secret project in 1947.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers.
All over the world, we know, it's well established, the State Department and intelligence agencies engage in theater, and it's what they do, it's spycraft, to create spectacles and events that people may not realize are spectacles and events.
It's time to stop swallowing that blue pill of corporate manipulation and remove the blindfold to a world not fabricated and mind controlled by the media.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Step into the light. Discover the truth. It's time for a reality check.
Reality check. Reality check. Reality check. This isn't something you need to be afraid of.
Now, two of the most controversial views of the paranormal, as well as conspiracies, you'll ever hear. The hosts of Reality Check, Jessica Johns and Joey Mirabella.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Reality Check's big premiere night.
Reality Check.
Yes.
Finally started.
Oh, man.
We've been hyping this up.
For like a month.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I'm Jessica John, sitting here with my co-host, Joey Mirabella. What's
Joey
up,
Mirabella.
Joey?
Not too much, Jess. How you doing over there?
You know what? I'm pretty excited. How you feeling?
I'm feeling just as excited. I can tell by the expression on your face.
All right.
Pretty
well,
excited.
could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am originally from New York, and I actually studied journalism in college, which is pretty much where I get my background in the subject, even though I haven't done anything with it for several years. But I am very, very adamant about any kind of conspiracy theories that are going on. I hear so many things everywhere. There's so much that's being hidden from the public eye, so much people don't know about, that we want to get you that information, but not just any information. We want it fact checkable. We're using everything with cited sources. We're going to make this an awesome show. It's not just us blabbing on here. We really want you to take everything seriously into account. That's pretty much what we're aiming here for.
All right. Well, I'm Jessica. Most of you know me as the craziest Britney Spears fan in the world. And I've been in the paranormal world for about 10, maybe 12 years now. 12 years actually now, I think. Something like that. Anyway, and that's pretty much how I got into all of this conspiracy stuff. It's actually one of my favorite topics. Actually, you know what, Joey? Why don't we go ahead and just get into it?
Probably a good idea at this point.
Because I'll just start.
We know.
Joey, just go. Just start.
We know. Well, first off, we did want to thank everybody who has supported us up to this point. Those who came to our party last week, friends, family, everyone we work with at Chayo.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to our Chayo family. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate the support and ongoing support. It means the world to us. You have no idea. And I also wanted to give a happy birthday shout out to my Uncle Mikey, who is 52 today. Real quick before we get started. I'm sure he's loving that I just announced it on the air. So,
and I want to give another quick shout out. I want to thank Ford Country for helping to promote our show tonight. They've been all over Twitter today, so thank you guys. Just want to say thanks.
Thank you, Ford Country.
That's right.
So, from two Mustang drivers.
Yes.
We love you.
Thank you. So Joey, what are we talking about today?
Well, this is pretty much something that I feel like has been a hot topic for decades, still a hot topic, keeps coming back, never goes away, and it's going to pretty much be based entirely around gun violence. You hear it everywhere, guns this, guns that. Should we get rid of guns? Should we keep guns? My personal opinion is that I feel there is definitely a safe middle ground between the gun extremists and between those that are entirely against guns. There's a safe middle ground. It is a constitutional right for sure, but then I feel as though there are some people that definitely take it a little bit too far, like gun clubs like the NRA. I feel like as though maybe that's taking it a little too far. But not just that, we are going to do a little bit of an exploration into the backgrounds of human violence by nature. You can't look at anything today and say that we live in the most violent era. That's actually a common misconception. We actually live in the least violent era in the entire history of the world, which is incredible.
Well, we're going to get into a little bit about different, how the whole gun control thing started. Well, for the most part, It became really big after Columbine, and we're going to kind of go through like the mass shootings, because apparently I feel like every day I wake up, there's a new one at some point, some kind of mass shooting, school shooting somewhere. So we're going to like get into all of that. And Joey and I actually spent the last month reading this giant, very informative book. I'm sure we'll end up just using it as a textbook for future shows. And we'll talk about a little bit about that as well.
Yes, and then while you're on that subject, the name of the book is actually An End to Murder, which is a criminologist's view of violence throughout history. It is by Colin and Damon Wilson. They're actually from the UK, so UK listeners, that may be more relevant to you than some people that may have not picked the book up in America yet, but it is an amazing study of human nature, violence going all back to prehistoric ancestry. It is outstanding. It is true that we have been the most violent species ever on this planet for a long time. It's not just suddenly that we're violenter in the last several centuries. We've been killing each other for a long time. In fact, one of the quotes that I really liked from the book that I wanted to start on was that we are the only species on the planet whose ingrained habit of conflict constitutes the chief threat to our own survival. So basically, we are a species so successful that we threaten our own existence, which, I mean, take a look around. Not just thousands of years ago, between sacrifices to people, to gods, through religion, but also weapons of mass destruction that we've created that could pretty much destroy the entire world within a matter of minutes.
Well, you know, not only that, but like technology has pretty much just taken over everything too.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. So
everything. We're so dependent on technology that what happens if computers suddenly go off? We have no cell phones. We have no internet. What do? We get no information.
Right.
Anything can happen.
Exactly.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, well, where do you want to start, Joey? What do you want to talk about?
Oh, let's see. I think probably the most important thing to go into right off the bat is how people rationalize violence. Now, you could say you're against gun violence, against that, but then we're in the middle of wars that, whether you support it or not, there's some way to justify killing people in some way, shape, or form. There's always a way through history that we have justified murdering other people, whether it's for your own personal cause or for a country's cause. Revenge is a huge one. Mm-hmm. So a typical human trait is that we'll rationalize and justify violence that serves our own purposes, that we approve of. So intellectually, even if we reject the reason entirely, if it's against human nature, we'll still support it because it's for a cause we believe in, like a war.
Exactly.
Just in general, or religious.
Right. So I want to actually kind of start things off a little bit. Also, we're going to talk, like, I want to talk about the school shootings and stuff, and I'm going to start at like Columbine and what really happened, why they really ended up killing all those people. And it's really, again, it's the whole like guns don't kill people, people kill people.
Right.
But after that whole thing happened, then it was gun control, we need to be stricter on this and this and this, but it's really about mental health and it's much more deep-seated than just blaming guns, because there are millions of people that have guns that are never killing people ever, that have it to protect themselves. People have been killing people for centuries before guns were even involved. So you could say knives don't kill people, people kill people, but you could blame the knives. People poison each other. I mean, there's evidence everywhere that proves that it's not the guns. It's mental illness. It's something that's going on much more deep-seated within people. And clearly those guys at Columbine, I know it's something that happened, over a decade ago, but it's still very relevant today. It is. And
still shootings going on.
Well, the thing is like, okay, so not only that, but then like, then you have 2012, you have, what happened in Aurora, and then you have what happened at Virginia Tech, and then Northern Illinois University, and then of course San Bernardino is a big one.
That's a huge one.
That's a huge one because
very recent.
We could discuss how that whole thing could have been avoided. The whole thing could have just been avoided completely.
Yeah.
And then there's other mass shootings that people don't really know a whole lot about. Like there was one at Planned Parenthood. There was one in Chattanooga. But
what's interesting about this, though, is what gets the most publicity in terms of these shootings. It's almost always, it is not, I mean, there are gun shootings all the time in inner city areas, in the urban areas.
Oh, yeah, every day.
That hardly ever gets any publicity. There's never memorials where people are standing around, putting flowers down, announcing this talk. You don't see that. I mean, maybe they do it, but it doesn't get publicity. Right. You don't hear about it.
Right.
But in the upper class areas, in middle class areas, that gets a ton of publicity. And then it becomes this whole campaign to get activists out there. Hate guns, hate guns, hate guns. It's not the freaking guns, people. I'm telling you, it's not the guns. Yes, they're available, but
exactly.
Just you're going to say.
You what?
I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, it's not even, I mean, that's all I can really say is like, you know, guns don't kill people. People kill people. We need to be able to be stricter. I think that guns should be, well, we talked about this earlier where we needed to get background checks on like mental health and like depending on, you know, what they take, like medication, if they're on medication for like depression or anxiety or anything like that. There's got to be a way to like keep those people from getting guns because one day they could just snap and,
of course,
you know, walk in and
another thing is when you're your own family, your own friends that know that someone is struggling with maybe depression, anxiety, getting bullied. That's a huge thing. Those kids were bullied at school, at the Columbine school.
Exactly.
That is a huge problem. Okay, coming from someone who was bullied back in my day, trust me, that's a huge problem. It makes you angry.
Oh, NSYNC girl. That's what everybody made fun of me for.
Girl?
Yeah.
And now you're Britney girl and we make fun of you for that.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I get that, you know, like everybody, I think at some point in their life, but you know, but if you're like them and you're like complete outcasts and, you know, you have nowhere, you don't think you have anywhere else to turn. And then their guns were purchased though at a gun show.
Right.
A friend of theirs ended up buying those guns for them, and then you know that's how they got those guns.
Right.
So.
And and that's what's wrong. I mean, not so much then during Columbine, but now because of social media, you see people lashing out on Instagram.
There's a lot of cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying. Not just that, but people will tweet and Facebook saying that they're going to do terrible things or that, I mean, there was a girl that killed herself a few years back. I remember hearing about it when I was living in Florida, but she posted on Facebook that she was saying goodbye to the world. I mean, that's sick and twisted stuff because she was getting bullied.
Right.
That she could have been helped, but people are almost afraid and embarrassed to ask for help because as much as we were the land of the free and the home of the brave, we're not so brave anymore. And most people are more inclined to just be reluctant to speak up anymore because we live in a country where they're campaigning fear down your throats 24/7 about everything.
Well, you know, like speaking of fear, you know, well, okay, can you turn on the news? Like, again, we just said like shooting after shooting after shooting after shooting.
All you see.
It's all you see. So it's gotten to a point where, okay, Walt Disney World, they now have metal detectors walking into Walt Disney World. Apparently, like nobody's ever thought to put, you know, metal detectors at Walt Disney World because it is the most magical place on earth. It really is the most magical place on earth. Ain't nobody going to show up with a gun.
Trust me, I'm from a Disney family. Don't even get me started.
But these days you have to take those precautions. So there are metal detectors now at SeaWorld or at Walt Disney parks. Then not only that, but they banned the sales of like those little plastic guns, like from like Toy Story or whatever. They banned those. And then I guess they don't have costumes anymore for anybody over the age of 14, which I thought was kind of strange.
Some of it's a little excessive.
For them to have like
some of it's a little excessive.
For adult, well, I don't know, I just think it's funny to have adult costumes at Disney World. But I mean, if but then, I mean, if you're an adult and you want to dress up like Cinderella, you should be able to get your costume at Disney World, but now you can't,
No, now you
so
can't.
they have,
you want to dress like a cowboy, you're going to be a cowboy that doesn't have little fake plastic guns.
Right.
You're just going to be a man with a hat walking around.
But they did this based on a news bulletin coming from the Department of Homeland Security, because Homeland Security stated that they were especially concerned that terrorist-inspired individuals and homegrown extremists may be encouraged or inspired to target public events or places. So
it's definitely smart. In fact, it is kind of surprising that Disney World has just implemented that, because without a doubt, there should definitely be screening systems for any place there's going to be massive amounts of children, hands down. You shouldn't be carrying a gun around at Disney World. You're not going to need that. What are you going to need that for? You're not. There's no need. I mean, there's certain places where, yes, you should definitely not have a gun, but I think that they spin it so wrong. I mean, think about it. You think of what's being shoveled down your throats every single day in the news. It's always a shooting, a killing. There's never anything happy on the news anymore, so you hear about the same crime a dozen times a day. So it's surprising that most people, or it's not surprising rather, most people feel like we're living in the most violent era in history. But actually, gun violence has actually went down in the last 5 years too, significantly. I actually have some figures here that I'll give in a moment.
But real quick too, I do want to mention, like, going back on San Bernardino and that being a really big thing. Because San Bernardino, that whole thing could have been avoided because the neighbors witnessed those suspects, like, the weeks leading up to, we're working in their garage, like working on whatever they were working on, into the late hours of the night. They were getting random deliveries at random hours of the day and at night and things like that. So there was a lot of suspicious behavior going on. But I think because the suspects, I think, were Muslim, I think that they didn't want to report suspicious behavior because they didn't want to be seen as racist. But had they had done so, the police probably could have already, been there and, because we're in a society now where everybody's offended by everything. Everybody is offended by everything.
We are so freaking sensitive,
we could be offending somebody
people.
right now.
Yeah, we probably are. And you know what? You're going to have to get over it. I mean, it's not that big a deal. We're just having a conversation. Okay, words are words. I always say, my nana told me this way back when I was a kid. One of the first things I was ever told, sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. Beatings and killing, and that's one thing, but when people are saying stuff that offends you and hurts your feelings, just get over it. It's not that big a deal. And it is true, because everything seems to be an excuse to pull a race card every single second. It's almost just continuously pitting ourselves against one another. And I got news for you. We're all the same color on the inside. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No matter who's getting shot, we all bleed red.
Yep.
So you're going to have to just accept that and understand it should not be a race thing. But it is very true though, that based on the way, everything has been campaigned, they do portray heavily. And this has been since far back I can remember on the news. It is heavily portrayed in the media that it's always minorities committing the crime, and that is not the case. I think you had a statistic there, Jess, about what most of the police killings were. That was actually really, really interesting. Of what was actually reported in the actual figures, but this is all right, really interesting.
Well, check this out. All right, y'all aren't going to believe this. Okay, so local police reported at least 400. This is coming from the USA Today. Okay.
And this is from the book Population Control, also, Why Corporate Owners Are Killing Us, a book by Jim Marrs.
So local police reported at least 400 police killings to the FBI each year in 7 years, ending in 2012. Of those 400 reported deaths, only 96 of them were black citizens shot by white police. However, 18% of blacks killed during those years were under the age of 21, compared to the 8.7% of whites. But I mean,
what do we see most of? What are we seeing most of? I mean, most of what you're seeing on the news with shootings, I mean, it always seems to be they're portraying a black male or someone that's a minority or something like that. That's wrong, because that's not the case. I mean, most of the people in the statistics that were committing the crimes that were shot were actually white people committing crimes, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but they want, certain things in the media to
influence us to think a certain way.
Right.
Think about that, people. Think about it hard.
What
they're trying to do to us.
I mean, it goes back to, a lot of people, Michael, it goes back to Michael Moore's documentary, in Bowling for Columbine.
Bowling for Columbine, yeah. Awesome movie, by the way.
Still relevant to today.
More now maybe than it even was then.
He was it was a whole segment on fearing the black man, so that's...
And it's true.
Yeah.
Think about how it's portrayed. I mean, especially in the suburbs. Okay. Especially in suburban areas, I grew up in the suburbs and everything like that. It's definitely true. I mean, it's almost like from seeing that so much on the news, it makes you expect that minorities are going to commit more crimes. I mean, it's sickening. It's terrible, because it's not the case at all. I mean, white people commit more crimes, but you don't see it as much. But when a white police officer kills a black person, it's not just, because there's people from every race that commit crimes. That's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. So it's not always a racial thing. It's not always, you can't always pull the race card.
Well, right. Because you have, so Columbine, Eric and Harris, white guys, Aurora, white guy.
Crazy school shooters.
White guy.
Shooting up tons of people.
Right. White guy. Virginia Tech, Asian dude.
Asian dude. Specifically a dude, just so you got that word.
Northern Illinois University.
That's the accepted vernacular.
White guy. San Bernardino, Muslim people. And then you get down to Chattanooga. I think that was a Muslim dude. And then you have in Charleston, what happened in Charleston, where, that kid, Dylan Roof went and killed 9 people at a historic black church. You have that, that whole thing. And I think that's part of what sparked all the racism or like there was a lot of racism after that, like with the whole like Confederate flag thing, but that's when people started to like become really careful about offending people and becoming, or being tagged as racist because of what he did.
Right. And it is wrong that everything is spun that way. I mean, there's clear evidence that there is a lot of racism that goes on. And there's a way they're spinning it. But I actually have a couple of statistics here I wanted to give out from the book, An End to Murder. Institutionalized race discrimination. In 2008, 32.8% of prisoners in the U.S., which is 528,200 people, were self-defined as non-Hispanic white. 36.8, or 519,900, classified themselves as black. 19.4%, or 313,100, were Hispanic. 11% as other. That includes Native Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and anyone else, which was a total U.S. population that defined itself as 64% non-Hispanic or white, 13% black, 16% Hispanic, and 7% other. So if you take those figures, if you actually were able to swallow all that, I know I said it fast, a Hispanic American in 2008 was more than twice as likely to have been jailed as a white American as was anyone defined under the categorization other. And a black American, get this, a black American was 5.5 times more likely than a white person to be in jail. But in fact, this was actually a better year to be an indicted black citizen, which is ridiculous. They estimate, the U.S. Department of Justice estimates that a black American is typically 6.5 times more likely to be incarcerated than a white American. So even the most rabid white supremacists would find it hard to believe the average black American is 6.5 times more likely than the average white American to be a criminal. But that's how the U.S. judicial system functionally behaves. So this basically means either white Americans are less likely to be jailed for their crimes than black Americans, or a lot of innocent black people are being falsely imprisoned in the USA, or both. But it's definitely discriminatory. It's definitely makes me sick just to know that, because it's definitely not that the black people are more likely to commit a crime. It's just the way everything's spun, and it has to do with the fear campaign as well that Jess mentioned earlier. When you fear something, or when you're expecting something to happen, regardless of how peaceful you are yourself, you may still fear attack by others. It's logical to decide to attack someone before they attack you, which weakens the danger of the counterattack or even annihilates the threat altogether. Okay, and that is, I think, where a lot of this police brutality stuff comes from, because you just anticipate that if you see something from a minority, that they're going to be more likely to commit a crime, and that is wrong. That is very wrong, but that's how the media spins it, and that's what concerns me more than anything. So
I think when we come back, I think we're going to probably get into more information about that book and
a couple other things. Maybe we're going to talk about some of the gun statistics of murders in our own country.
Right, yes.
And then some solutions to solving the issue, for sure.
You're listening to The Truth, as told by none other than the hosts of Reality Check, Jessica Johns and Joey Mirabella, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. It's time to flip this iceberg and expose the truth.
This is gonna be good.
Welcome back to your daily dose of reality. To share your thoughts on the truth, call the KCOR Digital Radio Network at 702-425-9230.
Are you deaf?
That's 702-425-9230. Those around the world use Skype name KCOR Radio. Tweet your thoughts anytime to KCOR at KCOR Radio using hashtag KCOR. Enter the world of live chat at www.kcorradio.com.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
Once again, it's time to cross that line of deception and bring you a reality check.
They're serious. They mean what they're saying.
With your mesmerizing hosts, Jessica Johns and Joey Mirabella.
All right, and welcome back to premiere night at Reality Check. We hope you guys are enjoying it.
We hope it's a reality check for all of you, for sure, so far.
Hey, it's definitely one for me right now. Anyway, so Joey, why don't you take us back into what we were getting ready to discuss for the second half?
Okay. Well, one of the things I wanted to do back during Bowling for Columbine, when that movie came out, I think it was 2002, he gave some gun statistics on killings via like using a firearm in several countries and then compared it to the USA. And it's not even, it just doesn't even compare. We are so much more likely to kill people in this country with a gun than any other country. And I'm just going to throw out a couple of those statistics. This is for 2012. In Germany, there were 61 killings that year with a firearm. In France, there were 140 killings in 2012 with a firearm. In Canada, 172 killings. In the UK, only 38 killings with a gun. This is a yearly statistic. In Australia, only 42. In Japan, 11. And get this, in the United States, 10,945 gun-related murders in our country. It is not even close in comparison to other countries. There's something wrong. There's something just inherently wrong here. And the thing is that you have to understand is most of these murders are not being committed with legally owned firearms. So when you attack the ownership of guns and gun rights, you're mostly attacking the law-abiding citizens that own their own guns. And that's the problem. So think of it this way. If you were going to make something illegal, Jess, let's say you're going to ban something that's an illegal substance like heroin or cocaine. Do we still see those drugs everywhere?
Yeah, in fact, more so.
More so, right? So when something's scarce, it becomes more desirable.
Right.
And they could jack the price up, make more money off of it. It's profit. It's a profitable industry that if they didn't want drugs to be in this country, I've got news for you folks, they wouldn't be in this country. If they didn't want guns to be in this country, they wouldn't be. But the problem is, if you disarm all the Americans that have their legal firearm to protect themselves, because I firmly believe it is your job to protect your own family, okay, from anyone that intrudes into your house. Because police, great, but they do not respond as soon as someone breaks in. They respond after something terrible has already happened. So you need a way to protect your own family. And if someone's breaking into your house...
And you need to know how to protect yourself.
Correct.
You need to know how to properly use a firearm. In fact, I'll tell you this quick story. When I first moved into my house, our house got broken into. I was at work. My roommate, male roommate, so he was sleeping because he worked graveyard, and somebody tried to break into his house. And as soon as he realized somebody was breaking in, he got his rifle out, and he heard. And as soon as the intruder heard, gone. But since then, he kept a 9mm basically under his pillow, and since he worked graveyard, I was always home alone by myself at night. So he had to teach me how to use his gun. So now I know how to. Me of all people now knows how to shoot a gun. So in case that were to ever happen again,
right?
So you need to know how.
And that is absolutely right, Jess. I firmly believe that anybody who buys a firearm the legal way, okay, should have a mandatory training course on how to use it, a marksmanship course. You should know how to use it, because it's one thing to have a gun, but think of it this way: you're preparing for something to happen, right? So someone breaks into your house or attacks you somewhere, and you want to protect your wife, your kids, your family, whatever. You're gonna hold that gun. I think we have a call. Should we take it? We actually have a caller.
Oh my God, we have a caller.
We actually have a caller on the line. Ooh,
all right.
So exciting already. It's a hot button issue. Let's see it. Hater or lover? Let's see.
Come on in.
Hello. Come on. You're on live right now.
Good evening. How are you?
Good.
Today?
How are you doing?
Yeah, I did want to pass this along. Hi, Joe. First of all, I'm a first-time caller.
Hi, Dad.
First-time listener.
It's my dad.
The young lady you're looking at right there is my
daughter. Oh, there you go. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I just happened to catch your topic of conversation.
Yes, sir.
So let me respond this way. I think anybody and everybody should go through some kind of background check.
This is
yeah.
Okay.
Well, everybody. I think, but that's the law. Yeah. I mean, but but it's got to be.
You have to go through a background check, even at gun shows, or when you're buying a gun from an authorized gun dealer. There's always a mandatory background check. I had to get one myself, and I got one, so it's mandatory.
The problem is that that's not being done.
Right. Well, and you're right, but this is the thing. It's not the people. Criminals are going to.
There are ways around it.
They'll find ways around it. Think of it. If you're going to commit a crime, or you're a drug dealer or a gang member, you're not going to get a background check to get a gun. You are going to keep your name out of the system. You're going to get it from the black market.
Well, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, because you get busted if you do otherwise.
Absolutely. So
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. But then, I remember, and you've probably heard this expression and seen these bumper stickers all over town. But the expression is, when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns.
Yeah.
That's an awesome quote.
That is.
That was by who? Who was that by? Do you know who that quote was by?
Whoever made that bumper sticker.
That was a great bumper sticker.
I lived in Texas for about 23 years.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, he's a Texan.
Texas.
That's the old West.
Right.
Yes, sir.
The gun laws are so lax and so easy, and I'll tell you briefly how that works. If you're driving your pickup truck down the road and you've got your rifle hanging in the back window, that's okay. As long as you can show a permit to own it, you can hang it wherever you want. Now, conversely, if you get pulled over and that rifle is sitting on your seat, or, under your seat, and there's no permit, you're going to jail.
Right.
That's it. That's the concealed weapons thing. But, I think you need to be a little bit more strict.
I absolutely agree with you. That's 110% sure, and that's why. What were you going to say, Jess?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, going along with that, there's a town in Georgia near where I grew up, Kennesaw, Georgia. It is mandatory for every household to own a gun.
Mandatory to own a gun.
Yeah, to own a gun.
Okay, Kennesaw, Georgia, high crime rate, high break-in rate, high robbery rate. Yeah, you have to have. I totally agree with that. I am so in favor of everybody having protection.
Sure.
And your choice. Okay. And here's where I kind of get off the beaten track with this. I don't think you should be able to have some kind of an automatic weapon that can pierce a tank in your house, unless you believe that somebody in an armored tank is going to come through your front door. Then you can blast away at this guy. Otherwise, I think you really have to have a little bit of smarts.
It's a little excessive.
That is a lot to ask for, though, too, because not everybody has that common sense.
Well, having an assault rifle, it's a little excessive. I mean, I'm thinking a 9mm and a rifle, you're good. But assault rifles like that, it's just or automatic rifles or weapons or whatever. You're not going to walk back there with you're not going to have an M16 hanging out in your closet. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
No,
you know what I mean? That's excessive.
Yes, there's definitely a firm line.
That's my point. You really don't need it. Most of these guys, they've got Glocks put away somewhere. A lot of them will have them in their nightstand drawer. They hear somebody, trying to get into the house. The gun's out. And the minute that guy goes into the house and tries to rob, and the next thing you know, the guy gets shot, the gun owner is perfectly within his rights to do what he did. And that's the way the gun laws work.
Right.
But, again, we're witnessing a lot of political backlash on the guns because you have one party who's really in the pockets of the NRA. I get it. I'm okay with that. I'm really not okay with it.
No, me neither.
Okay, I am.
I'm not a fan of the NRA.
No,
I think that's taken it way too far.
So the Republicans, and I'll just go ahead and name them by party and at this point, and just say that they don't care who has a gun. The NRA is totally behind these guys in every way, shape, or form. So great. And then you have the liberals or the Democrats who are saying, look, we need to have some kind of control. Kids are getting killed in school. Kids are bringing guns to school. And we have to stop this.
Right. Well, I know specifically who you're, one of the guys you're talking about. I don't care about saying the name, because there's a lot of his ideas that I firmly support, and we are talking about one of them we're talking about is definitely Donald Trump here. I know that's a huge hot button issue for this country, but and he is a member of the NRA, which is the only thing that I disagree with entirely. But the NRA has some sketchy roots, but I don't believe at all that Trump has any sketchy idea. In fact, I have some of his ideas here on how to actually fix the gun problem that are well thought out and intelligent.
Right. Joey just read Donald Trump's book.
Yeah, I read his book.
I'm waiting to read it.
The book.
If you would just do me one favor,
sir.
Cite me one of those reasons.
Absolutely. Okay. Well. One of the reasons that gun should...
Donald Trump... He wants...
Yeah. What is Donald Trump saying that hasn't already been said by anybody else?
Well, first of all, he does make it clear that we have to take more steps towards prosecuting violent criminals, which touches on what you just said earlier. The crimes need to be much more serious, and he gives a really great idea here, which was a program called, in 1997, a program called Project Exile. He mentions that it was started in Richmond, Virginia, which was enacted, and it was basically saying that any illegal gun you have, illegal, 5 years in a federal prison, hands down. 5 years for having an illegal gun. And when that went into effect, homicides and armed robberies declined by about a third, and 350 armed criminals were taken off the streets. And that's just in Virginia, right there. So, and even when they implemented a less tough state law, the homicides in Richmond had still been cut by more than half. If they crack down more on the people committing the crimes, which are still the ones that are committing them illegally because they didn't get their guns the proper way. They're not getting them the proper way. They're untraceable guns. They have the serial number scratched off where they were gotten from the black market. If we crack down more on that, if the penalties are much stricter, well, people are going to be a lot less likely to have a gun illegally.
Okay.
5 years in prison.
Having said what you said, let's go ahead and shift gears for a minute.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Where are we shifting?
So let's say that what you're saying is true, and Donald Trump is in favor of what you just said. So why is he on stage right now campaigning for the exact opposite?
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
In other words, right now, he is totally in favor of guns, and more guns.
Oh, yeah. Well, we do have a right. I mean, I do
we have that Second Amendment right to own our guns.
We should all be entitled to have our guns.
But we do. But I just need to hear. I'm okay with this guy. He's a little crazy for me. You know what I mean? He doesn't seem to fit the mold. But Donald Trump is redefining the Republican Party. And I think they need a little bit of sass.
A little bit of sass. Well, he's got the sass. Right. I mean, a lot of people bag on him because he is. I mean, let's face it. He's cocky as all hell. The man is obsessed with himself and his ego. But you know what? Let his reputation speak. He's built an empire. We are in a $19 trillion debt. We got some work to do in this country to get ourselves back on our feet. And who's going to be better to do that than a business mind? And not just that, but Jess and I talk about this all the time. One of the biggest issues is that we know that the other politicians that speak every friggin' election, they talk about this, and then they get elected, and they don't do anything that they say they're going to do because they have special interests in their pocket. And Trump calls them special interests. We call them higher-ups, Federal Reserve, Illuminati, whatever you want to say or call them. They pull the strings on everything, and they pay Clinton. They pay them. They rig elections. Trump funds his own campaign. Okay. He got no one reaching into his pocket.
Okay, now we've shifted gears here a little bit.
It's still relevant. It's still relevant.
Okay,
well, we're gonna
shift it all around.
We're gonna get into a lot of Donald Trump later, like in the future series towards the election.
I'm gonna get into one more thing, then I'm gonna let you guys take over and finish your topic here. But this is what I want to say. You know, when you get to be the president of the United States, you're not going to walk into the Oval Office and change things the next day. You have to go through Congress, the House, the Senate. They may not allow you, and then your next choice is to do an executive order, which as president you have a right to do.
So basically, an episode of The Apprentice.
You are still going to face
You're fired.
backlash.
Yep.
Just like Obama's been doing since he's been in office.
God. We'll get started on that guy.
So you know what? Like I said, we've shifted gears here a little bit. So I'm going to let you guys kind of hang on and go on ahead and discuss this topic. I'm going to have you on this side, and we're out in Salisbury, North Carolina, and we got you guys on. Jess, I love you, sweetheart. You're doing a great job.
I love you too.
Joe, it was good to talk to you.
You as well, sir.
Let me. I'm going to say this real quick. My dad did radio for many, many years, so this is like. So thanks for passing the torch, Dad.
You're welcome, sweetie.
Love you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Love you too. Bye-bye, guys.
All right. Well, I actually really liked everything he talked about. It's good because it brought up some of what we were going to speak about anyways.
In the future anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, there's definitely laws that need to be implemented for sure to make the penalties stricter. We all have a right to have something to protect ourselves. And Trump is also highly in favor of, as am I, just in general, people, like we said, if you have people with mental illness should never have access to a firearm. Never. You shouldn't be able to. You won't pass a background check. You shouldn't be able to get your hands on it if you're taking lots of medications, if you're mentally unstable, depressed, anything. I mean, if your family will know this. This is why families need to be, you can't be ignorant. You can't be willfully ignorant. Pay attention to what's going on. If someone in your family is exhibiting these kinds of symptoms and they have a firearm, or someone close to them has one that they could get access to, pay attention to that. It's up to you to stop it before it happens, not after it happens, because then that's useless, because you didn't prevent anything.
Well, you and I were sitting in Starbucks today talking about this, about how, like, if you were to sell your gun to me,
right?
You know, you would be checking up on my Facebook and my Twitter and like making sure I'm not a crazy person.
Well, but actually,
you know what I mean? Like,
I was speaking to a friend of mine about this,
right.
Josh, who I know is listening right now, and he has, you can legally sell guns to other people, absolutely, but it's not required that you keep a tab on their information of the person you sold a gun to. So when you buy one, it's in your name. When you sell it to someone else, it's still in your name that you were the one who bought it, because that's who it was originally sold to. So people, if you sell a gun to somebody else, and this is what my buddy does, keep a tab on all their information. Know their name, where they're from, keep the receipt for the gun purchase, keep all that information, because if they commit a crime with the gun that you bought, you don't want it to come back on you. That person needs to be the one to pay. That person needs to be the one to get locked up. We have to be more responsible as gun owners to keep our right. We can't just be crazy and haphazardly doing things, not thinking that something bad can happen, because if there's one thing we've learned, something bad will happen.
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law. There you
Anything
go.
that can happen will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What you got over there, Jess? Should I get into the tribalism thing?
Yes.
Sports? Yes, I know you love this one.
Let's get into the sports thing we were just talking about.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
I'll segue right to you. We're 10 minutes?
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, first show jitters, guys.
Yeah, we're working through this. We'll get smoother as we go, guys. Tribalism. This is a huge thing, and this is what racism has spawned from. This goes back to prehistoric ancestry, people that were for the same villages, from the same tribes. It's an allegiance that may initially be carefully thought out and rational, but after you gain heartfelt loyalty, you have a powerful hold on a person. So even in the face of evidence that should rationally make you abandon that allegiance, because you're brought up into it. This goes hand in hand with political support. This goes on the topic of religion. Your religious affiliation comes intensely from your own family. Absolutely. And then it also gets into to races, gangs. This is why we are so inclined to be racist for so many centuries, because people look different from us or they have different beliefs. So we shouldn't accept them. We shouldn't include them in what we believe. But that's ridiculous. That's obviously wrong. But people hold so true to these beliefs that if someone even in the least bit insults you or violates it, you go crazy. So it's pretty much like a social glue. So we fight and kill to better our own lives at a cost to others who aren't in our own group. This also has to do with even the simplest things like sports teams, folks. Think about this. Think about sports teams. I'm a Yankee fan, okay, and Boston fans, okay, Red Sox-Yankee conflict is one of the most vicious things that you've ever seen. Fights break out at Yankee games in Boston. If you wear a freaking jersey with a Yankee symbol on it or a hat, everyone looks at you in Boston, and you are most likely going to get the crap kicked out of you or beat out of you. And it's a sports team. You're not even playing the damn sport. But just because you're a fan, people are going to go crazy. That's how serious we hold to these things. So there's always this tension between Boston and Yankee fans when we meet each other. And anyone from that side knows what I'm talking about. Okay? Anybody knows what I'm talking about. It's the same as, the Niners and Seahawks, right? They have a huge one too. Same thing there. Mm-hmm. And I know you have a pretty crazy story about this.
Years ago, my parents took me to the Peach Bowl, and it was LSU, Louisiana State, go Tigers, and Miami Hurricane, right? That's what Miami University is,
the Canes,
right?
University of Miami Canes, yeah.
Anyway, but Miami has this reputation for being, for bad sportsmanship, and LSU won 41-3. I'll never forget it. 41-3, and at the end of the game when they shake hands. Well, the very last person, the last player on Miami ended up punching the last player on LSU, and then this whole big fight broke out. And there was like a riot and all this stuff, crazy stuff, all the way to the MARTA train station, okay? And they ended up having to separate all the fans. Like the LSU fans had to be in one car, the Miami fans had to be in another car because there was so much chaos over this loss. I mean, it's really about, like, it wasn't necessarily like a rivalry thing because our rivals are, Auburn and Alabama and places.
But it's just how defensive people get.
Right. Over the whole thing. It was just a game, dude. It was just a game. You lost. It was the Peach Bowl. Won the championship. It was just a bowl game.
Yeah.
But
we cling to those groups like, oh my God, someone's violating someone that holds my beliefs. I'm sticking to them. I'm getting involved in this fight. For sure, 100% hands down. And you see that everywhere. I mean, we're using sports teams as an example, but it is a good example because it's even in the smallest things that we love so much that are the reasons where racism and people feeling separate and bigotry and religious differences, it all spawns from that.
We could even get into the music industry about that too.
The music industry?
Yeah, I'm not talking like...
That's going to be in like a 10-hour topic.
No, I know, but I'm not talking about like the Britney Christina feud. I'm talking about
but you had to talk about...
No, I'm talking about the rap community.
Rap community.
No, because then that
goes...
Oh,
well, you mean with rap beefs and everything? And
yes.
Yes. Well, that's obviously a whole separate topic, but those can go on and on and on.
Right.
Just because of people from separate sides of the country. East Coast, West Coast.
Exactly.
Biggest one.
Right.
Biggest one. But there really just are an endless amount of examples of these types of things.
The Hatfields and McCoys, which is a topic that we're actually going to talk about in a future show. The Hatfields and McCoy feud that lasted like 26 years. I'm really excited about that.
Actually, on that subject, because we're running out of time here, folks, but we do want to give you a little bit of a summary or an idea of some of the topics we're going to be talking about within the next few months to come.
I think we're going to be doing the Suicide Forest.
That's coming up soon.
We're probably going to do that in the next week or so.
Well, for those that don't know, the Suicide Forest is it's that movie, The Forest, that came out, but the Suicide Forest is a real place in Japan where people go and kill themselves for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
It's been around, and that's a true story. We will get into the truths behind that.
So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the infamous Making a Murderer because that's been the biggest hot topic.
We want callers and questions. About that.
It's gonna be big. We're gonna do that. We're gonna talk about Leah Remini's books.
Yes,
the Scientology.
We will be supporting Leah Remini and her breaking out of that sick, twisted cult that they call themselves.
Get into the Titanic conspiracy.
We'll do an Illuminati episode. We're going to do September 11th, the truths behind that. We'll do the Malaysian airline.
Oh man, I can't wait to do the Malaysian airline and
Anonymous.
Those
that wear the masks from V for Vendetta. We're going to be talking about them and what their true aim is, the true aim of their game, their campaign. There's so many topics, folks. We're so excited to get this going.
Make sure you guys find us on our Facebook, facebook.com/paranormal_reality. Paranormal reality. No, paranormal reality. Sorry, my bad. Facebook.com/paranormal reality. Thank you guys all so much.
Thank you for tuning in.
This is our first show, our premiere show. We're very excited to join you guys every single week. Every Wednesday night at 9
p.m. every Wednesday live. You can listen to it after it goes off. Always on KCOR Radio. Our show is called Reality Check. Download the TuneIn Radio app. And please tune in yourselves. We will talk to you next week, folks. Been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Stand by. You've been listening to Reality Check, the one show that doesn't prepackage and spin the truth as propaganda. Hosted by Jessica Johns and Joey Mirabella.
I see incredible potential here.
Live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, the hosts, as well as social media links to Reality Check, please visit their page on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
We know that they provide strong motivation for decision-making teenagers.
It's time to stop letting someone else control your mind and explore the truth hidden within. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital